was the last of the great civilizations to develop independently in the Old World, over 1,000 years after the first in Iraq. And theirs was a vision of life unique to itself. The Chinese conception of civilization differed completely from that of the West. For them, its goal was a moral order on earth, sustained by virtue, ritual, and reverence for ancestors. These ancient ideas permeated all aspects of Chinese life, even the cataclysms of our own time, from the communist revolution down to the crushing of the democracy movement here in Tiananmen Square in 1989, have been played out against these deeper forces which have shaped China for thousands of years. This is a search for the roots of Chinese history. And our search begins in the old lanes here near the Temple of Heaven in Beijing. Tucked away in the alleys here is the oldest pharmacy in Beijing, founded in 1663.
It's simply Beijing Dongringtang Pharmacy.
Yeah.
It's enough. It's so famous.
Yeah, and now it's Beijing, China.
In Chinese medicine, as in all traditional Chinese culture, the basic idea is the search for harmony on earth. Ultimately, this was the goal of civilization itself. And to reach it, inner and outer lives must be in congruence. Yin and yang, as they say, female and male, dark and light. This elemental balance underlies all Chinese thought, whether in science or philosophy, in food, or as here, in medicine.
The discovery of the origins of Chinese history happened by a strange chance. In 1899, a Chinese scholar who was quite well known here in Peking, Wan Yizhong, was suffering from malaria. He had prescriptions for it made up in his local pharmacy. It could even have been this one. At the time, a friend of his was staying with him as a house guest, and he saw the prescriptions being made up. One of the ingredients was a recipe which had been used by Chinese doctors for hundreds of years, ground up old bones, known as dragon bones. But to their astonishment, when the two men looked at the bones, they saw that on them was a strange, archaic form of writing, some of whose characters were the same as those used in modern Chinese writing. And though this recipe had been used for hundreds of years, this was the first time it had come to the attention of scholars. The two men determined to find out where the bones had come from. They combed the apothecaries' shops in this part of Peking, and eventually they came up with their answer. The bones had been dug up near a dusty little town in central China, in the plain of the Yellow River, a town called Anyang. The Yellow River, coming down from Mongolia, bearing its rich yellow silt to the Yellow Sea, destroyer of cities, killer of millions, even in our own century. Chinese civilization first arose on its banks, but unlike the civilizations of the West, the source of political power did not lie in control of nature, but in control of the past.
There's nothing to see at Anyang today. The site of the palaces and tombs where the dragon bones were found has been ploughed over. But here were the ruins of Yin, the last city of the ill-fated Shang dynasty, burned down in 1100 BC. And here was the answer to the riddle of the dragon bones. The chemists in Beijing had been grinding up the ritual archive of the Shang kings. These were oracle bones used by royal diviners to communicate with the ancestral spirits. In these strange marks lay the beginnings of the I Ching, the great Chinese book of wisdom. It was through the magic power of writing that the ancestral spirits could be raised. And the ancient Chinese word for these symbols, wen, writing, would become the word for civilization itself. In the beginning was not the city, but the word. The second key find at Anyang was the bronzes. They were used for sacrifices and ritual meals. Their inscriptions tell of the worship of ancestors and lineage, basic preoccupations of the Chinese till today. It was the possession of these things, the performance of the correct rituals, the monopoly of bronze and writing, which gave the rulers access to the wisdom of the ancestors. This was the basis of political power. And only with this could the ruler possess the greatest of all gifts. A gift to be kept only so long as he was just and cared for the people. The mandate of heaven. A fresh grave in the cemetery of the Kung family in Chufu. A monument to the most influential figure in Chinese history, Kung Fuzi, Confucius. It was Confucius who transformed the magic of the Bronze Age into the conception of the state as a moral order sustained by virtue and ritual. Confucius lived in that astonishing Axis age when the Buddha was alive, and Pythagoras and the Greek philosophers, the Jewish prophets. Not a religious leader, but the codifier of China's traditions in history, poetry, and ritual. His teachings were the ideal of Chinese government for 2,000 years.
At the center of Confucius' message was a very simple and original idea. He wasn't concerned with God or the afterlife or heaven. I don't know anything about